Welcome back to Books with Duddy. And today is the first book in my new journey of the top 100 books of the 21st century as chosen by New York Times readers. So I'm excited to get started on this. And the first book we're doing is A Man Called Uva by Frederick Bachman. I could be butchering the pronunciation here. There's a couple of names, obviously, in this book that I might get wrong, but I think it's Uva. But anyways, that's the book, A Man Called Uva. And we're going to start with a spoiler-free review of the book, and then I will give fair warning and kind of go into my thoughts and reactions to some of the spoilers in the book that happened. So, start with our spoiler-free review. Let's get going. A Man Called Uva is about a man called Uva, as you might have guessed, who is an older gentleman and what you would say is very curmudgeonly and very orderly, almost to I think almost to a level of like OCD. But he likes things done a certain way, and he basically doesn't have time for other people's crap. So we start our story with him, and one of his routines that he always does is that he always goes around basically and checks his neighborhood in the morning to make sure there was no burglaries. And one day there happens to be a new family that is moving in across the street, and he is very, as I said, grumpy, and this family is not. They are very outgoing. And that kind of sets the stage for our story. I don't want to go too much more than that, because I think it starts to get into spoiler stuff, but I could not put this book down. I absolutely loved this book. Even though it definitely has some heavy themes or a curmudgeon for a main character, I couldn't stop smiling reading this book. And I don't know exactly why that was. I haven't been able to put my finger on it. But that was the reality. I felt like almost the entire time I was reading this book, I had a smile on my face, and I just wanted to keep reading more and more and more. Even though the premise to me, didn't sound that exciting. There was always something happening that we were finding out more about why Uva might be so grumpy and his past, and we learn about the other characters and what they're up to, and neighborhood drama and all these kinds of things. And like I said, to me that sounds kind of boring, but it was anything but boring. This book is just full of, I don't know, heart. You hear someone say, yeah, that movie has heart, or this book just had heart in a way that it was just a joy to read. As I was finishing the book, I did not want this book to end. I wanted more time with all of these characters. I wanted to hang out with these characters more, with all the hijinks that go on. And so I really, really enjoyed this book. Downsides, I mean, honestly, there weren't a lot of downsides for me. I guess there's a few things that are kept vague in the beginning of the book that I thought it was unnecessary to keep vague. But I'm nitpicking at this point. I certainly see why this book is rated so highly, which is not the case if you watch my next review after this one for Shuggy Bane. We are on opposite ends of the spectrum here. Anyways, so I'm going to give this book on my rating scale an 8.8 out of 10, which is a fantastic score. Just a really great book to read, and the best way I can say it is that it's just full of heart. So that concludes our spoiler-free review. So if you want to avoid spoilers, you need to stop here, because this is your warning. I am going to start talking more about specific characters and specific things that happen that you can definitely consider a spoiler. So you have been warned. And I guess the first place I'll start is honestly like my nitpick that I had to come up with. Like the first few chapters, it was like obvious his wife was dead, but it wouldn't just come out and say it. That annoyed me for some reason. Like I knew she was dead, but it just was so vague. Like it purposely kept avoiding saying it, I guess. And maybe that's Uwe, his brain. He doesn't want to think that, but I don't know. That was my nitpick. But anyways, I can't think of like a character in this book. I guess there are a few bad characters like Tom from the rail yard, but the I don't know if we ever got their last name. The neighbors, Parvana and Patrick. Did we ever get their last names? Well, I don't know, but Parvana was amazing, and I'm sure I'm not alone in feeling that way. She was a firecracker in all the right ways, and without her, and specifically her, I think it's obvious what would have happened to Uwe. Let's just say the book would have probably been cut short by a lot, because he probably would have succeeded in what he kept trying to do. And that was one thing, I said I was smiling throughout this whole book, and there were heavy themes, and it was weird because like he was kept thinking and talking about doing, I think you have to say unalive now on YouTube, but like just the way it was written, and like you knew he wasn't gonna succeed, at least right then, and I was just like waiting to see how his plan failed, and like who Parvana barges in the door, or whatever it was that he has to save the guy, and so he just kept failing, and I was just smiling about that, because I don't know, it was just heavy themes, but the way it was written was uplifting in a way, because it was almost like it was like it wasn't his time to go. Like he wanted to go, but it just wasn't his time for whatever reason. And so these things kept happening to stop him from that. And I loved just learning about Uwe's life. I thought he was inspirational in a way, in some ways, and obviously in other ways I think he took it a little too far, but he was inspirational in that he just knew the value of hard work, right? He was just gonna do the job, do it as well as he can, and he'll do the next job the same way. He's never gonna get accused of being lazy. So I found that inspiring in ways. And I loved the neighborhood drama, with Rune, and I don't know if that's how you say it. I'm just going to say it like that. And Anita, and, their whole thing with cars and which car they're buying and all that stuff. I love that. It was kind of sad in ways that, they had lost that many years of friendship over things most people would consider trivial. But, at the end of the day, learning about the past was exciting. And then, obviously, with, a lot of people from the neighborhood, Anders, Jimmy, and I want to come back to Jimmy in a second, Patrick, Parvana, and Uva, all, and then the reporter, Lena, all basically making the white suit guy get out of Dodge. Now, I think this book is like from set in like a Scandinavian country, I think. I don't know if it's real that they can like just come in and take people like that. I don't think they could do that here. Just for like having dementia. I could be woefully uninformed, but either way, it was nice to see everybody band together. And I absolutely loved when we got the little tidbit that Uva and Rune had found out that, this lady with the chubby kid was getting abused, and by this guy, and they basically went over and took care of it, and it turns out it was Jimmy. And I love that little detail, that tidbit, because that was not in my brain at all when like I was reading through that situation. And another thing I love is the iPad thing at the beginning and how it hooks around to the end to Uva buying the iPad for, I don't know if we ever got the names of the girls, but I think she was like 10 at this point. Or no, this was before they got older. I don't know. But, then it comes back around that's who he's buying the iPad for. And then I think, if I'm remembering correctly, after he leaves that little party is when the burglars stab him. And I was about to be pissed. Because, he was finally making some, real headway at, what his wife would have wanted him to do. You either get busy living or you get busy dying. And, it felt like he was starting to get busy living. And I was pissed because I thought he was going to die there. So I was happy that he did. And I'm glad. I think he got like 4 years with them and spending time with them, that family, and really taking on a granddad role, which they call him. And, when I get to the end, and I'm tearing up about it right now. I don't know why. Like that just hit me so much when he really passed, and Parvana was there with him, holding his hand. Yeah. I don't know why it hit me so hard, and it's hitting me hard now, but I was just this book got me emotionally invested in all the best ways. So let me know what you guys thought in the comments of this book. I thought it was an awesome read. Very glad I read it. If this is 100, I've got a lot to look forward to going forward. So I would really appreciate it if you could like and subscribe. I'll be back soon, and I hope to see you there.